So as a church, over the next few weeks, we're going to look at some stories from the Bible that help us to think about our vision for everyone to encounter the love of God, to learn to live like Jesus, and to go in the power of the Spirit to see lives and communities transformed. Now, this very room was once a ballroom, and I want to talk this morning about how steps transform into dancing. And last week, Jim spoke about being a church that isn't finished but ready, and the importance of us pausing to wait and to pray. And this morning, we're going to look at the story of King David dancing before the Ark of the Covenant as an expression of David encountering the love of God. Now, I am not a dancer at all. When I was 4, after a couple of ballet lessons, I asked my parents if I could play football instead, to which my dad was very delighted. And I never, ever looked back, except for one momentary blip when I was 8 years old. My friends at school convinced me to join them in entering a talent competition in our local area, and they were going to dance to the song Rock DJ by Robbie Williams. And because I liked the song, I said yes. But they very quickly learned that I couldn't dance at all. So my role in the whole song was to stand in the middle of the stage and do this for the entire song. So I'm literally just there. There's probably a video of it somewhere in my parents' house. I'm literally stood there on stage, just going like this, whilst all my friends danced around me and looked good. You see, the problem was I can't dance, and I didn't want to learn the steps. But I do know if that you want to learn to dance, you've got to learn the steps. And if we want, as a church, to experience and be expecting of something like the freedom of God's presence that dancing symbolizes, there are some steps that we can choose to learn and to practice. And so the first step that David practiced was he got himself ready to crown God as king. Now, I wondered if somebody would like to come up on stage and be King David. Don't worry, you don't have to dance. Yeah, you can come. Your hand went up straight away. Jump up on stage. If you just come and stand just there for me, and I'm going to give you some things to put on. Okay, so if you just want to either hold or put those things on that are in that box. So you start doing that. Is that right? Amazing. Sit. There's a few more things in that box for you to put on. It's amazing. So if you put the robe on because you're a king, it's actually a curtain, but we'll pretend it's a robe. Great work. And you've got a sword there to hold if you've got enough hands. And a shield, can you hold that? Amazing. You look the part. Fantastic. Well done. So King David was a successful military king. He fought in many battles with great success, and as a result was a very popular and loved king. And the journey that King David and all his people were going on to bring the ark, this is a representation of the ark. They were going on this journey to bring the ark into Jerusalem. And it would have been easy to assume that it was all about celebrating King David and how God had worked through him in amazing ways. But King David wanted to make sure that it was all about God and that God got all the glory. And so he didn't actually dress in things that showed he was a king. So I'm just going to take that off you. And you don't need that robe anymore. And he also didn't dress in things that showed that he was a military leader, so you can put the sword away and the shield. Instead, he dressed in something so plain that could have been worn by any priest in Israel. Can you just pop that on for me? It's just a plain t-shirt, just to represent something that anybody could have worn. He didn't dress as a king. He didn't dress as a great fighter, but just like any priest in Israel could have dressed. And as we come to worship, can we make it all about God and not about us? Can we lay down the things that are making us look good? Maybe as we worship, we need to lay down our job titles. Maybe it's how popular we are at school that we need to lay down. Maybe we need to lay down our embarrassment that we won't sound good when we worship freely. Maybe we need to lay down our fear of being judged or watched by others when we worship. Maybe we need to lay down the things that make us look strong. Maybe we need to lay down our pride because we don't want to look silly. Maybe we need to lay down our emotions because we don't want anyone to think we're not holding it all together. Maybe we need to lay down everything in our hearts and minds that's distracting us from giving God all the glory. None of us are finished. None of us are complete versions of ourselves. But when we come to worship, have we made ourselves ready with all our might and effort to crown God as King? If you're going to go and sit down, but if you take that t-shirt with you, because I'll need your help again in a little bit. So you have heard us use this phrase, we're not finished, but we're ready. As you look around, you'll notice that we're in a space that's not finished. You'll notice that it doesn't yet look as good as we'd like it to. We can still see some of the plasterboard. And there's an intentionality in that for us as a church. As Jim said last week, we're to be a church that learns in this season to wait and to pray. And as we wait, we're not leading the way with making this space look good. Instead, we're choosing to make space to crown God as King before anything else. And so my question for us is, have you come this morning ready to crown God as King? The second step that David practiced was allowing his waiting to be transformed into dancing. See, the Ark of the Covenant had been with the people of God, and it represented where God was present. But for 20 years, it had been in an area of land that the Israelites couldn't get to. But because King David had been a successful military leader, they could now get to where the ark was. And so King David ordered for the ark to be brought on a cart to the city of Jerusalem. And all of Israel, like an entire group of people, joined a procession. But the first time round, it didn't go too well because the ark was on a cart and the cart stumbled and God was angry that it had stumbled. And so instead, King David got a bit scared and he said, I don't want to bring that to Jerusalem, so I'm going to send it to somebody's house. So he sent it to Obed-Edom's house, which was en route to Jerusalem. And 3 more months go by until we get to the bit in the story we heard today. But once King David had heard that the presence of the ark in Obed-Edom's house had been a blessing, he decided it was time to bring it to Jerusalem again. But this time, he got 4 priests to carry the ark. So I wonder if I could have 4 people that are willing to come. Eliora, yeah. Are you coming together? Come on then. I need 1 more person to help me with the ark. Perfect. There's a bit of a height difference, but we'll be fine. So you two... Amazing. Very good representatives of 4 priests. Well done. You're loving being on the stage. I know you are. And so Moses had actually commanded that this box be carried by 4 priests. And so David learned about that, and he made sure that that's how he brought it into Jerusalem. And so they get ready to carry it to Jerusalem. So I don't know if you want to get down just onto the floor just there. If you help each other get down, that would be really great. Stand there then. Or do you want to stand with me? There we go, we've got some extra help. You want to stand down there? It's fine. And King David goes in front of the ark. It's fine, he can stay there, it's fine. Do you want to go in front of it? And so King David goes in front of the Ark of the Covenant, and they get all of Israel behind. So they've got cymbals, they've got music, they're dancing, an entire people group get behind them. And so they're ready. King David is dressed in his linen ephod, and he's ready to go. And the journey is about 8 miles long. Just so you know, you've only got to walk about 8 miles, okay, this morning. And so that's roughly from here to Daisy Maid and back again, so you can have ice cream halfway through, so you'll be fine. And as they start walking, do you want to start walking? So you've got to head towards the exit, and then you've got to start walking to Daisy Maid. That's it. Keep going. Off you go. And stop. After just 6 steps, they stop because King David chooses to make a sacrifice before the Lord. And everyone waited while David offered sacrifices in the presence of God to say sorry that he'd got it wrong the first time, to say thank you that he'd allowed them to walk just those 6 steps, and to ask God to bless the next bit of the journey. Thank you so much. You can leave the ark there and you can go and take your seats. They must have thought, come on, David. We've had 20 years where this ark has been where we couldn't get to it. We've had 3 months where it sat in someone's house whilst you've worked out what to do. And now we've taken just 6 steps on an 8-mile journey. Why are we waiting? And I might be projecting my own impatience onto that story. But it can't be easy to wait when you've had 20 years, and then another 3 months, and then you've got everyone going, everyone's in place, and then you've got to wait again. But as David waited, he made sure that he was right with God, that he wasn't getting carried away on his own. And out of that moment, David began to dance. And so what opportunities could you choose to make the most of in this time as a church where we're waiting? Because waiting is never passive in the presence of God. So I wonder, can you prioritize Kingdom Come, our monthly prayer and worship gathering? Can you prioritize coming to the family breakfast that's next Saturday? Could you prioritize coming to midweek youth, where in those places we get to intentionally pray and worship together? Can you make use of the prayer room when it opens up in the coming few months? Could you carve out 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes in your day to simply pray, "Come, Holy Spirit," and then just wait in his presence? You heard last week how 8 years ago, some team first stood outside this building, and a team member felt that God might give us this place. 3 years ago, we moved in downstairs, and now we're here. We're not finished, but we're ready. And as a church family, we are in our own moment of having taken 6 steps, and now we hold a space of waiting, expectant that God will meet us in our waiting and transform it into dancing. David danced before the Lord with all his might as an expression of the freedom and joy that he felt in the presence of God. It was an outward and visible sign of what God was doing in his heart. And I don't think it's a coincidence that this was once a ballroom. I think it's a picture for us as a church of the freedom available when we encounter the love of God. And I wonder if over the next few weeks and months, he might transform our steps into dancing and release freedom in prayer and worship that we've not yet seen. Let's pray together.